come on, stop biting me, damn it. Come on, knock it off, stupid bats in the mines. I don't want to catch rabies or worse. Oh god, I think it's happening. Ugh, damn. Well, I guess if you keep going into the mines to look for rubies and fossils, you turn into Bat's personal chew toy, and you end up as a vampire. It's still a better love story than Twilight if you ask me, and while everyone is fighting over who is better, if it's Edward or whatever was the other one's name, I still think I'm on Team Leslie Nielsen. I don't know why, I guess it's his charm. Or maybe I just remember it incorrectly, and so I started my journey as I created my vampire and I ventured into the lands of Transylvania. Day 1 started with me waking up after a really long nap as I climbed down from the top of the mountain, which the people of the lands decided to turn into mausoleum instead of skiing resort. It was a little tricky to make my way through the cemetery, but I managed to do so as the night finally did set in, and with my newly crafted basic gear, I started to venture into the lands and hunt for food. I got to say that Capri Sun tastes a little gamey. I did manage to massacre a few bandits, and after wandering for a while, I managed to find a nice spot, but I decided to go with a larger location in which my new castle should be erected. Shut up. Day 2 started, and it felt really weird as so far I was battling the hardest enemy I came across in this game so far. These stupid pines. It took so many attacks for me to take down a single one, but I finally managed to clear out a nice piece of land to call my home. So when night 2 rolled in, I started to again terrorize the bandits, as both me and the heart of my castle will require blood. So I continued to set up my new home until the sun rose, which is when I went to hide in my coffin, as decent sunscreen recipe won't be discovered for the next couple of hundreds of years. Night 3 was amazing, as once you have a couple of blueprints constructed, you can start to work with your blood altar, which lets you hunt down these specialized blood type carriers. The first one on the list was Alpha Wolf, which I managed to lead into Bandit's logging camp so that he can play with them, and as he was chewing on them, it was much more easier for me to drink its blood, which allowed me to turn into Jacob. I mean Wolf. However, as I was going back home, I came across another bandit trapper camp where I fought another one of the V-type carriers who had lots of frost attacks. She was no match for the bear I recruited from one of the cages. Problem was, I was enjoying sucking on her blood so much, by the time I was done, the sun was up and I had to hide in one of the tents in the camp. Night 4 was another hunt for V carriers, but on my way to my target, I came across a camp with another carrier, but I had to run with my fangs stuck between my legs as some vampire hunter showed up and ruined the whole thing for me. So being totally upset about the experience, I went to go sleep it off in my coffin as I woke up still during day 5. Because when you are locked up in some mausoleum for God knows how long, and they did not even install in some clock to tell me when the night sets in, my biological clock was all over the place. But night 5 arrived, and so did I into the bandit camp, making sure this time the stupid vampire hunter won't show up, and I was able to slay the archer. Once I was done spitting out all the wooden bits stuck between my fangs, as for some dumb reason I thought using his bow as a DIY dental floss would be a good idea, I was paying so little attention. I somehow ventured into the bandit copper mine so I can slay another V carrier, and by the time I finished, day 6 arrived, and so I spent it inside of the copper mine mining for all the resources, as I will require them for another furnace and more future crafting. Night 6 was me getting back to my, well, I cannot call it castle yet, so let's call it base of operation. I started to craft a lot of copper bars, and I got myself some new outfit pieces and a copper axe. Unfortunately, my next V carrier will have to wait until the next nightfall. Night 7 was almost completely spent moving from point A to point B and back to point A. Let me explain. I did manage to find the Chaos Archer, and I got turned almost into a pile of ash as these bandits joined the battle, and also this pack of wolves got somehow mixed in all this combat. But I did end up tasting that chaos flavored Archer Capri Sun, and I learned a new magic trick. On my way home, I wanted to eat a hot dog, and this alpha wolf sure tasted like one. Maybe I need ketchup of type B positive to make it taste a little better, because all this fur is making it difficult for me to enjoy my Happy Meal. Unfortunately, it did not take too long for it to happen, as night 8 was the death of me. I came across all these tasty soldiers or bandits, and when I was trying to pick up all their pieces from between my teeth, someone handed me this oversized toothpick. I should not be surprised when I have this phobia of sharpened wooden sticks in general. Day 9 was a cruel day, and it was also a great showcase that the older I am, the lesser patient I am getting. So I was looking at my next meal. You know that feeling when you can almost taste it, but you need to wait because either the line at the buffet is too long, or the sun is still shining and the guy is standing in the middle of open space without any shadow. But when I finally managed to start the battle and get to defeat him, it took me forever to clear out his beard and bite down on his neck. Seriously, while I was trying to move his beard around, I think I even managed to fish out some bone from his lunch. Unfortunately, during night 9, when I was still at the bandit camp, I was battling some of the archers, and the game decided to punish me for my lack of Twilight Universe's knowledge, as during my battle with already low HP, the camp decided to spawn in a patrol party on top of me, and I ended up getting killed. Night 10 was the first milestone, but it felt more like a total fiasco. Again, I feel like I need to explain. So I was on my way to hunt down one of the V-type carriers, but along the way I came across a totally different one, and it did not go well. Let's say in the middle of it I started to daydream about how my character will eventually look like Edward, which distracted me enough to get myself killed. When I eventually returned to site of our battle, that V-type carrier was no longer to be found, and upon trying to find him, I came across a bandit camp which had a large crowd of fans who were more on Jacob's side, and so I had to fight them, as this lasted until day 11, when I got killed because I was again trying to do a 10,000 calorie challenge for YouTube. Night 11 felt like a payback as I went back to the bandit camp and I turned them all into all-you-can-drink buffet with express line ticket. I even came across the V-type carrier and somehow a rock golem got involved, and since I was crazy enough to tackle a golem with half of its HP, I eventually did manage to turn him into a bunch of pebbles at the end. Night 12 was my first blood moon, which is like a super long night apparently. So I marked the next V carrier on my blood altar and I went. And thank God the night was so long because I had to travel over a kilometer on the damn map until I came across the sulfur mine, where even the general units had skulls and there were just too damn many of them. So I had to run in order to not die again, and man, it was really bad because I felt like I did not really utilize the blood moon properly. And because the previous night I had such a horrible luck at the sulfur mines, night 13 was spent at the base making a couple of upgrades in order to prepare for the next long journey back to the sulfur mines in order to prepare for my upcoming battle. I spent night 14 at the cemetery as I was constantly short on the supplies which I needed for the healing salve. The benefit of the cemetery is that you can come across plant-based matter, bones, and rats. And all of these are required in order to make the first healing potion which you have access to as blueprint. Problem was, I actually came across way too many of the bone mages, and in my quest to gather all the supplies, I ended up getting killed. Night 15 was spent fixing my gear as the constant dying and dealing damage to all the enemies led to its deterioration, reducing its overall effectiveness. Plus, it's cheaper than to constantly keep making new gear over and over again. When I arrived on night 16, one of the most difficult battles started, and thanks Satan I had so many healing potions ready as I went in with 3 full stacks. And when I returned, I had only 2 potions left, and a bunch of sulfur stuck between my fangs. Day 17 was spent on the road as I had to return back from the sulfur mines, which was not the most convenient road as I had to once again lurk in the shadows and hide in the bushes. When I finally arrived back home, it was night 17, which is when I started to prepare for the next V-type carrier. That is this big oversized bear, and I wasn't really ready yet, so maybe I will need to go and visit the graveyard for even more supplies. Because night 18 was however so close to another milestone, I decided to screw the preparation and just go after the big bear, which turned out to be a horrible idea as its combination of attacks created an issue for me as I really did not have enough time of a window to properly heal myself. So I went back to my castle or base of operation, whatever we call the dump where I keep hiding at during daytime, and I made a crossbow in order to try and combine it with my spells. Night 19 was spent at the cemetery as I did manage to come across a shockingly good amount of crafting material for potions. So Yogi, get ready because I am coming for your picnic basket. On night 20, I went to see Yogi, but I was not able to make a decent dent into his HP pool. I think it's the damn fur, it's so thick and luscious. I gotta find out what conditioner he is using. So I went back home so I won't die, and on my way back I stopped by a pond and I did some fishing while I started to think about possible strategies on how to deal with this oversized teddy bear. Night 21 was spent finishing up the initial structure of the castle as I finally had a roof and now I had a stone coffin. I made some gravestones for summoning of skeletons and ghouls for resources or possibly to work as a defensive layer for my castle. I then decided to go to the copper mine as I was once again low on stone, copper, and more resources for further crafting. Night 22 was spent gathering resources as I had a lot of copper to grab, and also I was able to use the box of explosives to gather a lot of copper from the massive deposit. Unfortunately, one of the bears decided to light the fuse as I was laying down the bomb, so I had to run away in order to not get caught in the blast. When I got home, a lot of ghouls were waiting for me, so I showed them who's the real undead boss, after which I had to Google how to get the greater blood essence for one of the servants' coffins. I also decided to mark a different target to kill. Maybe I will have more luck. On night 23, I tried to battle the necromancer on top of the cemetery, and because of the constant bombardment of attacks from not just him, but all these skeletal mages, it was just way too much. So on night 24, I decided, since I felt stuck, and I was no longer able to kill 2 V-type carriers in one night, as each one would require a substantial amount of preparation and healing salves, I would need to target a different V carrier, which can allow me to craft iron weapons, which would help me boost my overall stats and maybe be able to return to the previous carriers that I was unable to kill. So I made my way to the bandit camp, and I spent day 25 waiting for the nightfall, as the bandit boss was in a place where I did not see any shade, and battling him during the daytime would be impossible. Night 25 was a big milestone, as I felt like I finally did something right, as I was able to slay the bandit leader and unlock the iron processing. Now to just find some iron ore. I made my way out of the camp, killing almost everything and testing out my new ultimate ability. Night 26 was my second blood moon, and so being so confident thanks to killing the previous V-type carrier, I tried to go after another one. Issue was that I ventured into the lands where I was no longer dealing with simple bandits, but instead with the local villagers and their militia, and they don't really screw around. They were even willing to cook their own units alive with friendly fire or just really bad aim, and I am the king of bad aim, so I know what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, the V carrier I marked as my next launch was much different from any other I so far encountered, as she kept running away, calling for reinforcements, which made it really difficult in the village to get not overwhelmed. So I had to run away, as I came across a local farm and I turned it into a steakhouse, as I really like my ribeyes really rare. You know what, don't even bother putting it on the grill, just bring it over from the fridge. I also tried to make some of those Swedish meatballs for IKEA before I figured out that the horses can actually be used for transportation. Night 27, I tried once more to see if I can turn that V-type carrier into my lunch, but it was clear that despite my best attempts, I will need much better gear, and I found out that riding on the horse is quite challenging, but a nice way to change things up, as I can even attack from top of the horse. My initial plan for night 28 was to spread the word of Twilight Saga around the local farmlands, but people started to be aware of my presence and they started to hang garlic everywhere, which made it impossible. So I took one of the secret scrolls for vampires called the Necronomica Googlia, and it told me where the secret or the forsaken iron mines, whatever you want to call them, are located in the world. I therefore ventured there, and apparently whoever set up the mines dug too deep, as they did not awaken just Balrog, but also a lot of undead. While I was there, I fought a super high level V-type carrier, and thanks to all the hazards, half of her HP was gone, but I was not able to finish the job, which will come to haunt me later down the road. I also came across the undead commander, but I had no intentions of fighting him, as he would totally annihilate me, as my goal was to get as much iron and get it back home to be smelted. Night 29 was spent by me traveling back from the farmlands to my castle, as I started to process the iron ingots, and I realized that they will take forever to be smelted, so maybe another forge would be required. I needed the iron in order to start crafting the better weapons, as they will help me to better deal with all the other V carriers I wasn't able to deal with, like the Necromancer and the Yogi Bear and all the other ones. However, as my first servant was finally ready to serve me, I found out that I will need to even equip gear to him in order for him to have some decent statistics, as despite the fact that he is literally holding some weapon and shield, he's absolutely pointless at this time. I spent night 30 back at my castle as I started to mess around with the specialized flooring, which can give boost to the workbenches. When I summoned one of the larger rats, it almost managed to kill my first servant, making me wonder just what kind of equipment would I need to give him to make him more usable. On night 31, I tried to go after the necromancer again, not learning any lessons so far, as he had the recipes which would allow me to start utilizing the scrolls I stole from all the militia to start researching brand new technology. Unfortunately, it did not go well. So at night 32, I tried a different approach as I killed every goddamn undead unit at the cemetery I was able to find before I actually approached the necromancer on top of the mausoleum, and I almost saw the light at the end of the tunnel, but when I saw that he was about to start doing that skull projectile spell, I wanted to squeeze in and whirl my way into his death, and unfortunately my aim was off, as I'm the king of bad aim, as I mentioned previously, and I soaked in all that damage which got me killed. So I finally decided to craft the smithy, and I found out that the iron scythe can actually deal added damage to all the undead units, so I knew I had to get that specific weapon and go kill the damn necromancer once and for all. On night 33, I was finally able to start using the iron scythe, which proved to be more than enough to deal with all the undead units and the pesky necromancer. When I finally subdued him and I was able to taste him, my only thought was that I either need a spicy sauce or he needs to take a shower, because the taste was absolutely horrible. By the time I got back home from the cemetery, it was day 34, and I started to work on my iron spear for that oversized bear. When the night 34 arrived, so did I at the Yogi's cave, and boy, even with the iron spear I stood no chance. I really need to rethink my approach. On my way home from the cave, I managed to kill another rock golem, and my stupid servant got killed by all the ghouls I summoned at the cemetery. I seriously need to equip some gear to this idiot. On night 35, I had to go back to the iron mines, so knowing this, I made the iron mace to mine the resources faster. It took a while, and I spent the day and even night 36 in there until I had 13 full stacks of raw iron, each with 200 pieces, which will literally take me forever to smelt. Shockingly, I came across a lichen, my swarm enemy, yet it was still too strong for me, but that doesn't mean I did not poke it a little. The funniest thing was, however, how it instantaneously turned from lichen to human when day 37 started, and I used that day to return to home and start smelting all the iron. Now I need a paper for the research station, so I can use the scrolls, and I need to learn how to turn this wooden dust into paper. Night 37, I went to the bandits logging camp where I would e-skill the V-type carrier, and I found the necessary paper that was required for me to construct the research desk. The problem was I will require 75 scrolls for just one stupid blueprint, and because I can get anything, the odds of me getting the paper press were highly unlikely. They could have thrown in a loot crate mechanic just to make it a little bit more obvious. Night 38 was spent almost completely proving that Not Your Professional Walkthroughs is the only name right for my channel. So if you're liking the video so far, make sure to give it a big thumbs up, and hey, maybe even subscribe. Okay, so I ran for a whole kilometer as a wolf through the lands to get to the next V carrier. But by the time I got to this gleaming meadow, which is this lovely place filled with flowers and it just radiates harmony, God, this place makes me sick. I did the worst thing ever as I started to fight, not waiting until the next night. So when day 39 started, I tried to continue the fight, but it did not go well as I ended up using all of my potions. When night 39 arrived, I tried to battle the V carrier again, but without any heals I stood 0% chance, and eventually I got killed again. Honestly, I'm not even gonna show you all the times I got killed, otherwise this video would be 6 hours long, and nobody has that much time to watch YouTube, right? Day 40 was here, and so were these cranberries in the bush I was hiding, and yuck, they're so sour. I cannot get the taste out of my mouth. Until night 40, when I finally slayed the damn V carrier in the meadow. I swear if I will ever take over this place, I will make this into a landfill. Problem was, the rest of the night I had to travel all the way back home, but I made a wrong turn and I ended up in between way too many guards and rotations, as I barely made it out alive. Day 41 was tough, as I had almost 0 health and I had to avoid all the roads and hide in the shadows. I came across a conveniently placed small cemetery, so I started to hunt for rats, which allowed me to make some healing potions, but I almost crapped my undead pants when a V-type carrier walked into the small cemetery. So I had to rush back home, as it was night 41 by the time I got there, and so I went to see my old friend Yogi, as I had this gut feeling about the scythe as a possible weapon to be used, and well, I kind of screwed up the first time. I spent day 42 by traveling back to the bear cave, where I carefully went around him to not trigger him, as I was able to recover all my healing salves. Night 42, it finally happened, as I was able to conquer the big Yogi bear, and I was able to drink him dry. I think I still have his fur balls stuck in between my fangs, and I'm unable to get it out between them. But I was finally able to transform into teddy bear, and I went back to my castle. Day 43 was spent in preparation for the upcoming blood moon, as I found out by using Google that 2 V-type carriers can be found in one region, and maybe I will be able to hunt down at least one of them without getting myself killed. I also needed to do more fishing, as I still had to summon the putrid rat, which if I would kill, would allow me to transfer into one myself. Maybe that skill can be used to help me infiltrate certain high-end security places. I don't know. Night 43 was so far the most glorious blood moon I experienced so far. I ventured into the village and killed everyone. I looted people's houses, found lots of scrolls and bunch of cool things. The funniest thing was that bunch of nuns even walked down the stairs, and when I killed them, they all dropped tainted heart. Even funnier was how the V-type carrier ran so far I burned all the calories I was about to receive, and so I proceeded to make my way up the hill until day 44, when I managed to make my way inside of the church, where I killed everyone, as no god will stop me from entering a church. I wanted to continue the day by unleashing another killing spree, but the stupid fire arrows just got to me. I was able to eventually return and kill everything that was left alive by using my iron weapons, but when another vampire hunter showed up, I ran. I tactically retreated. Night 45 was spent by harvesting resources and crafting things as I started to expand my castle. My original idea was to follow some cathedral architectural blueprint, but that went out of the window a long time ago. This place could use, however, some Windows, or maybe Linux. I haven't decided which license key I can afford yet. Night 46 was spent by me gathering more resources and doing some fishing, but night 47. Oh, night 47 was amazing, because I made a garlic resistance potion, which lasts for a really long time, like 16 minutes, and I went on a killing spree as I harvested a lot of cotton in order to start crafting more fancy schmancy fabrics. Of course, being me, on day 48 when I was going back to my castle, I got killed because I am an idiot, and it was by the time when night 48 rolled in when I was able to arrive back home, and I was ready to summon the rat, but I had to sleep off this garlic taste in my mouth. by the time the night 48 continued, I was really confused by the information on Necronomica Guria, as some of the text described the fact that by me killing one of the V carriers in the village where I spent all the past nights in the local tavern, I should have potentially received the blueprint for the paper press, but apparently that wasn't the case, and I started to find out that my gear or my armor wasn't sufficient enough. Problem also was that when I came across another carrier, she led me towards the church where the nuns and the soldiers managed to kill me. So on day 49, when I had to make my way to the village, and unfortunately one of the stupid vampire hunters showed up again, and who could have guessed it, I would end up dying. This really started to piss me off, as the problem with me not having the paper press is complicating my chance of making paper and scrolls and being able to unlock more tech, armor, and better gear. I'm just afraid that I will need to roam the countryside, killing what I can in order to keep gathering scrolls, and then gamble with the RNG Jesus that the blueprint that I will unlock for 75 scrolls will be paper press. Night 50 was however even dumber, as the word milestone should be erased from my vocabulary, as I finally summoned the putrid rat and I was almost killed by it twice. Luckily I had potions and home base advantage. I guess the lesson to be learned is do not summon big ass rats in your living room, or if you want to get a house pet, make sure you do a proper research, as by the time I killed the damn thing, it was day 51, which will be spent by me most likely recovering and crafting items in preparation to venture back into the farmland for even more scroll hunting. And so when night 51 was here, so was I back on the back of my trusty steed. Well, not sure how much I can trust him, as I stole him a couple of days ago, but those are just technicalities. I was able to find my target, the Sun Priestess, and things were going well despite the fact that the militia was constantly fighting me and joining the battle. Things turned to dust, however, when the stupid vampire hunter showed up again and I ended up getting killed. So during day 52, I started to crawl around as the rat in order to get back to my gear. Unfortunately, by the time I reached the priestess, she made it back to the village, and there was no chance in hell that I would fight her, especially when she wanted to make her way up to the hill with all the support she would receive. If I would try to actually attack her at this point, it would be totally suicidal. And I am stupid, but not suicidal. Tonight on MTV Cribs, watch as a vampire will stay home instead of going out and spreading the word of Twilight Saga and start to tinker with flooring and different patterns in order to give his workbenches certain boosts in the production speed. I decided to switch up the tactic, as night 54 I spent by roaming around and fetching resources around the local bandit camps, as I wanted more paper, but it turned out to be a waste of time. I will seriously need to get the paper press, which got me thinking about the V carrier too, as I will need to venture into the farmlands in order to start being able to make glass, which will lead me to having access to better healing potions. The fun thing was, by the time the night was about to end, I was at the logging camp as the vampire hunter showed up, and it seems like I might be able to take him down, as I started to work on having better set of armor, but I did the cardinal mistake of fighting him. As our fight continued into day 55, which made me die almost few times, and I lost all my healing salves, it looked like an angel was sitting in the skies with magnifying glass, turning my ass extra crispy, as I had to run away, tactically retreat again. Night 55 was spent by me visiting the villages as I raided the local farms for their supplies. I was thinking that if I would come across enough cotton seeds, I might be able to turn V-raising into Stardew Valley by growing my own crops like sunflower, cotton, and all the other ones for continuous farm production. But I also thought about the fact that if I will want to go and finish my armor set, I will first need to raid the farms and wait for the garlic debuff to wear off, and only after that I will be able to face the priestess of the sun again. Damn, this thing is going to be tough to plan out with the remaining amount of time I have. Night 56 started great as I was finally ready to face off Tristan the vampire hunter. The problem was that the dude walked like 1,000 miles during the daytime, and it took me almost half of the night just to find him, and so our epic clash began. And sure, I did take some damage, but the rage quit moment came when Tristan was down to his last third of the HP, and the stupid bandit came out of nowhere and got in my way and separated me from the V carrier, which allowed him to completely heal up and reset his stats, and left me with most of my HP in the crapper. As the daytime was approaching, I said F this, I will go home and prepare bulk potions for the upcoming blood moon, as I will try to track down and kill the sun priestess so I can start making better healing potions. On night 57, I was back on my horse. God, I swear my riding skills look like I won the license and lottery. But I was able to come across the sun priestess at the edge of the village, and our battle was epic, and I did manage to finally defeat her. Unfortunately, because I got to be the stupidest vampire around, I ended up getting killed by the militia. So I ended up having to retrieve my gear, which with the vampire hunter around was quite tricky, and I had to spend day 58 in order to move around, avoiding combat. And I learned after more than 50 days in this stupid game that the ability I had all along called the Blood Mend allowed me to heal quite easily. Well, what would I expect since I never played the game before? Anyhow, night 58 was spent by me raiding the local farms as I was looking for weed in all the cotton fields, and I swear I have no idea where did they get all this garlic from. I wonder if they import it from China as well. Well, this was bound to happen, what can I say? I am a moron as somehow I did not record 9, 59 and 60, but thankfully I did not do anything besides reorganize my castle storage system, and on night 60 I ran an experiment where I found out that blowing up the large copper deposits is worth it, as each one will give you over 425 copper and some extra, making it more effective as each copper node individually can go from between 60 till 85 copper. Problem is that the large nodes once destroyed do not respawn based on my observation, so I marked new target which if killed would allow me to start crafting better jewelry. On night 61, I was able to hunt for my next V-type carrier who specialized in ice melee attack, and it was a little bit tricky due to the location where I decided to battle him, but eventually he fell despite the fact that he was well equipped to close in the distance. Unfortunately, day 62 was a proof that the game has got to be messing with me, as by the time I arrived home, the stupid vampire hunter decided to follow me inside of my own castle. As after I killed the frost carrier, I raided a couple of cotton farms, so I still had the garlic debuff applied to me, or well, it wasn't really inside, it was next to it, but still. So night 62 was preparation for the upcoming payback as I sent my Mo to raid the copper mine, which apparently will not take 22 in-game hours, but real-life hours. Night 63 was payback time as I decided to go hunt for Tristan again, and because when I was on the back of my horse, my sense of smell was all over the place. Maybe it's all the manure from all these farms. I went in the wolf form, and we battled, and I started to notice this in-combat effect which kept ruining each engagement as I was almost unable to heal myself, and it made it almost impossible to continue the battle and take on the bastard successfully. On night 64, I ventured through the farmlands in order to reach the Forsaken Cemetery where the Dark Priestess was located on top of the hill. From my previous experience from the Necromancer, I knew I had to kill all the skeletons, otherwise they would just follow me to the top of the hill and join in on the battle and I would stand zero chance. Unfortunately, I got killed by the skeletal commander, and because I'm the world's most stubborn Twilight fan, I had to go and take my revenge, as it was day 65 by the time I got to the priestess, and of course having not enough healing potions, I ended up being killed when she triggered this effect where I saw absolutely nothing and her shadow puppets were able to finish me off. What the hell is this in combat status? Where was this bullshit when I was fighting Yogi inside of his bear cave? Night 66 was spent at the cemetery doing a little cleanup. By the way, I have done 100 days in Graveyard Keeper, so if you want to go and check out the previous episodes, the playlist will be featured in the video's description. And from this harvest, I was able to make 20 healing potions. When night 67 rolled in, I went and I made it to the cemetery where the V-carrier who killed me was waiting for me. And so our battle started, and this time knowing what to expect, I did a lot better, as I managed to kill her with plenty of healing potions left over. And this is when I managed to do something I haven't done in ages, as I looked around the region and I came across an interesting place that I found with plenty of gemstones, and in there was the next V-carrier. And I started to battle her on top of this hill. Now she took on this golem form, and I realized hopefully that I need to destroy the smaller ones in order to break her overall defense, and eventually I managed to kill her, as if I would not manage to do this during the nighttime, I would absolutely be annihilated because there was zero place for shade to appear during daytime. So when day 68 arrived, I was victorious, however battling all the undead, and after that the golems was really not good for me because I have used up all the blood and I will need to go and feed myself. Night 69 was spent by me terrorizing the villagers in countryside for cotton and other supplies, as I went home to process all this, and I placed down 2 new workshops for processing of gems. And from this night I was stuck in what I like to call between a rock and a hard place, as for the next 3 day and night cycles, I kept going over and over again to the Forsaken Iron Mines to battle this archer, and I kept struggling with her constantly. So my issue was through the engagements that she can not only summon units, but also heal them. And I needed her alone, as her attacks if landed could stun me for long enough so that the added archers can use their explosive bolts, which meant that over and over again I kept dying. The one chance I should have had was when she started to battle the skeletal general on night 71, but that went out of the window as a raiding party of militia wandered in and I ended up dying again. Stupid minds, I will need some different tactic for this. Night 72, I tried again to fight the stupid archer, but there was no luck in me making decent enough dent in her HP pool, so I grabbed all my supplies and I went home, and along the way I managed to recruit the militia brute. It was challenging as we had to walk back home, but lucky for me no bandit groups were patrolling the roads, which led to one of the easier conversions for my servants. When the blood moon arrived, I went on scroll hunting trip, as I had twice the amount of time and taking out the basic militia was now manageable. Shockingly, I think this was the shortest blood moon ever, as I at least did manage to get 50 scrolls through the night and kill a whole lot of humans, living up to the blood moon's name. When day 74 arrived, however, I kept making my way north until I came across a farm and I started to kill the farmers, but when night 74 arrived, one of them transformed into my ancient enemy, the lichen, and so we fought together and I managed to finally kill a werewolf, and I got to say, it did taste like Scooby snack, chewy and stale. So because I was at the edge of this region, I decided to venture in, and I found myself in the Forsaken Lands where I fought this big ass spider. Man, talk about dinkum flashbacks. And I came across the village with Banshee, which was interesting battle on its own. Still do not however understand why in the world am I, an undead being, fighting other undead units. We should work together. And so day 75 was spent traveling back home, as when night 75 arrived I learned that I can make holy resistance potion, which might help me fight that stupid archer in the mines, so that might be something I will do again. Day 76 I spent by traveling to the graveyard to stock up on supplies for healing salves, and the following night I spent terrorizing the bandits as I made my way to the western side of the map, through which you can access the farmlands. So I noticed that the monastery can offer me quartz and glass, which I will need for crafting. When day 77 rolled in, I found another teleportation location, now to only figure out how to teleport with all my inventory. Night 77 was done preparing potions, as I had like 13 vermin salves and 3 blood rose potions, and the resistance to holy powers as well. When I arrived to the mines, I spent the entire day 78 literally looking for the archer, as I could not find her anywhere. It was until night 78 that I finally found her, and honest to God, if the skeletal general did not engage her, I still don't think I would be able to defeat her and kill her. But finally a skeleton helped a vampire brother out, and I was finally able to cross her off my kill list. Finally. On night 79, I decided to go and track down another V-carrier, as I ventured into the lands where I was never before on this frozen hill, and I started to battle this thing, and holy crap was I in trouble. The biggest challenge were the frozen spikes. It kept casting, which froze me on the spot, not letting me move, which allowed it to close in the distance. Problem was, it kept moving so much I was sure the scythe was not the right weapon, so I was thinking maybe the spear. But I had to retreat, as I knew I was not ready to take it down. I discovered a mountain cave with some V-carrier who I would not stand a chance against, and so I ventured through the next day towards the monastery, as I finally got there on night 80, and I got to say, I know when to retreat from big ass frost monster, so I won't die, but these fanatics from the clergy were able to kill me, which I was not thrilled about. Also, without the holy resistance potion, I would not stand a chance, as there were all these sigils all over the place which kept casting holy magic. So after I made my way back to the monastery, I made it to the back of the church, where I found the largest quartz concentration ever. Day 81 I spent going back home, and thank God for this cave, which allowed me to cut down on the travel time. I looked it up, and apparently if I would want to travel using the teleportation gates with full inventory, I would actually have to change lines of the codes in order for this to be possible, and I would feel like that would change the game dramatically, and it would just not be fair, so I decided to not do that. So when I arrived home on night 81 and I started to process all these ingredients, wondering what I will do next, so I gathered resources, which continued well into day 82, as when the night 82 arrived, so did I at the militia camp, where I battled their leader, and it was a tough fight, but I got to say, some of these V-carriers are just one-time deal, and not like the grizzly or the freaking thing in the frozen mountains, which I will still need to deal with. But the benefit of killing the leader of the militia is that I can get the next station to craft even better gear. Problem is, I have no idea how to get dark silver. Night 83 was spent with production, as this continued through to night 84, which I have spent by even further expansion and upgrades for the castle. And on night 85 I was continuing with the upgrade of my castle, as I upgraded the heart of the castle in order to put down all these benches and have more ground to use. And also I started to work with the light decorations so that it's not just cold stone walls. On night 86 I started to contemplate the possibility if the game being in early access can cause a bug which made the V carrier constantly run off from the combat and keep regenerating its health, as it was getting ridiculous at this point. Night 87, I went and I tried to battle the frozen popsicle again, and this was such a pain in the ass. I did not manage to get to fight it in some good spot, so I spent day 88 waiting until the blood moon would arrive. And when the night 88 rolled in, I wasted no time, as I was not thrilled that instead of raiding villagers for scrolls, I'm stuck with this knucklehead, but I finally managed to kill it. Also, because it was blood moon, I did not waste any time and I went raiding the villagers for scrolls, and I managed to get out even with some nice supplies of quartz. Night 89 was spent at the castle processing all the loot, and I also decided to try and go after the big spider in the Forsaken Lands. Who knows, maybe being able to summon spiderlings will have effect on people like it had on me in Dinkum when I had to pull them out of the bug net. Day 90 was spent reaching the Forsaken Lands, which was tricky due to lack of shade, and I unfortunately met a lurking predator called the Nightcrawler, and this thing was able to kill me in few strikes, so I was quite mad. Night 90 was spent with my first battle with the Spider Queen, and I'm starting to realize how the lack of access to better gear, or at least the stupid paper press, would help resolve all these issues. My observation was that she was quite stationary, so using the scythe would actually be good, but I would require the upgraded iron version, which I did not have access to, and therefore my damage output was not sufficient enough. Only thing which was able to deal decent damage to her was my upgraded spear. So when I got eventually killed, I ran past all the spiders inside of the cave towards the Spider Queen. I picked up my dropped loot and I decided to leave the cave. Day 91 I spent at the farm with the lichens, as I did raid it a little bit, and at night 91 I was able to travel back home processing all the resources, as I will most likely be forced to go on raiding spree through the villages for scrolls and cotton. I wanted to go and reach the villages, but somehow one of the big militia brawlers got all the way into the woods amongst all the bandits, and as they were fighting him, his HP got quite low, and I was able to possess him and bring him home, turning him into my third servant. Day 92 I was able to use the teleportation stone, as apparently potions and healing salves do not count as items along with your weapons. Night 92 was amazing, as I do not know if vampires are lactose intolerant, but I cheesed the hell out of this vampire hunter, as I kept hiding behind every rock and tree I could find, eventually getting her HP down and turning her into a very lovely snack. And here I was afraid I was no longer gonna be able to do something like this. Now to just wait out day 93 inside of this home in the village so I can continue to pillage it for its scrolls. Night 93 started with a good old massacre, but that got interrupted as I came across Christina, the V carrier, with her holy power of healing, which prevented me from reaching the church. And bless me, devil, for I have not sinned enough. After she went away from the church, I went inside to see what goodies they have laying around, and I continued the night by raiding the village for cotton. Day 94, I was again stuck inside of a home, waiting for the night. Man, that sounded almost like a Jennifer Lopez song. I spent night 94 in the countryside, going through the militia encampments in order to get even more scrolls. And by the time day 95 was here, I was entering my home and getting to process all these things, and of course I brought home over 100 scrolls, and all I got out of them was a stupid vase and a chair. No paper press for this vampire, apparently. I spent the night 95 at home preparing for my final journey to fight the Spider Queen, as the journey will be long and deadly. But on the positive side, with the now upgraded armor, I was hoping to kill the Spider Queen, as I needed to learn how to make ghost silk for the new leggings set from Adidas. I still don't understand why Juicy needs to be written on my ass, but I guess since that is how I like my victims, why question it? Night 96 was again battled with the Spider Queen, and I came to the unfortunate realization that until I would upgrade my iron weapons to their merciless status, I would not be able to make a dent into her despite her stationary attack mechanism. I therefore left the cave, and I at least raided the Forsaken village for few items. Night 97 was spent by me raiding the militia, as I needed those stupid scrolls, as I hoped to get a paper mill or something at least to help me get better gear, but of course I received some stupid decoration for the scrolls instead. But I'm skipping ahead, as the day 98 was spent going back home, where I started to process all the gathered supplies. When night 98 started, I had my third servant, who I named Igor. I then started to make a set of armor for him, and then I decided to travel through the villages into the lands occupied by the royal army, as I read that the silver mine should be located there. Problem was, when day 99 arrived, I ended up inside of the enemy encampment, inside of their building, with way too many pyromaniacs, and I ended up dying. On night 99, I went on a tour of the local silver mines, and if I thought that the iron mines were a pain in the ass, this place was 10 times worse due to all the security protocols put in place by the army. There were holy units, they were ranged units with flintlock weapons. Man, the silver mine must pay really well when they are able to afford all these toys. I decided to travel back to the villages, trying to get some additional scrolls, as I tried to steal a horse, but shockingly the militia decided to attack him. I guess they were craving those IKEA meatballs. Night 100 was a proof that despite me playing this game for the first time, I wasn't really that bad. I just needed access to better information or some tutorial which would actually explain some of these in-game mechanics to me, as I was able to kill 23 V carriers out of the 32 that are currently in the game. I did manage to grab a bunch of scrolls, but of course no paper press for this fan of the Twilight. I mean, that movie with Leslie Nielsen. Damn, that was close. And with that, I will be also closing the 100 days in a video game. Hopefully you liked the video, and I'm quite sure a lot of you will be able to let me know in the comment section all the bad things I have done, all the things I have screwed up, all the things you would have done that would lead to better results, and well, we can compare notes, I guess. And for more fun content, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, as I publish content on a weekly basis. Thank you all for watching, and bye bye for now.